Hello everyone, this is Mrs. Khan from the Maths Department. It's my turn on the Get Waddle Reading podcast, and today I'm going to read about a couple of people in this fantastic book called Amazing Muslims Who Changed the World. I've chosen one man and one woman that I would like to read about, and the first person is Muhammad Ali. In the 1950s in Louisville, Kentucky, there lived a feisty little boy by the name of Cassius Clay. As for so many other black people in America, growing up there wasn't easy. At the time, white people and black people were separated from each other. They attended different schools, shopped in different shops, ate at different restaurants, even drank from different water fountains. It was called segregation, and it was part of American law. Having been raised a Christian, Cassius had always been taught that all people were equal, so he knew it wasn't fair of him to live in the shadow of white people. He wasn't the only one who thought like that either. When he was 12, Cassius learnt that there were others who thought like him too. Soon he was set on a new path, a path that would change the course of his life forever. One day, Cassius proudly rode the new red bike he had got for his birthday to the Columbia Township Auditorium. Rumor had it that there would be free treats at a convention that was being hosted there, and Cassius was excited to swing by. But that afternoon, when he went to retrieve his bike, he found his parking spot empty. Someone had stolen his pride and joy. Furious, young Cassius tracked down a policeman. He was determined to get even. In tears, he declared to Officer Joe Martin that he would whoop the kid who stole it. Recognizing Cassius's fighting spirit, the policeman suggested he learn how to box. To do this, Cassius would need a gym. It just so happened that Officer Martin had one of his own, and to top it off, he was a coach too. The white policeman didn't care about the colour of Cassius's skin and invited him to join in for training. After drying his tears, Cassius took him up on his offer. From that moment on, Cassius trained hard to become a boxer. He skipped for hours on end to toughen up his legs, he threw punches at heavy bags to increase his strength, and he sparred with his own reflection to quicken his reflexes. In the mornings, he'd even wake up at 5 a.m. to run in the only park for black people in his neighborhood. Things were looking up, and Cassius was more optimistic about his future. At the age of 18, the trainee boxer was winning almost every amateur match he competed in. It was soon time to broaden his horizons. The Olympic trials for the American teams were being held in San Francisco, and both Joe, who had remained his trainer, and Cassius would have to fly there. Reluctantly, Cassius got on the plane. He had a fear of flying, but he knew that this could be his big break. Then disaster struck during the flight. There was a huge thunderstorm, and the plane would have to ride it out. Cassius held onto his seat for dear life. His stomach churned, and he prayed endlessly. He had no choice but to shut his eyes and wait for the aircraft to land. Cassius qualified for the Olympic Games. But that very day, he swapped his plane ticket for a train ticket and threw away his dream of becoming an Olympic champion. There was no boat to Rome where the Olympics would be held, and Cassius was determined never to get on another plane in his life. His coach sat him down on a park bench and explained to him that life was full of risks. Taking that flight would change his life. Joe was sure of it. Cassius had the potential to be the best, to have his name known across the globe, and to become the greatest boxer who ever lived. But he'd have to face his fear of flying first. Cassius finally agreed, and in Rome, his persistence paid off. He beat his competitors easily and took home the gold medal at just 18 years old. But alongside all his amazing sporting success, Cassius felt something was missing. One day, the boxer stumbled across a man selling a newspaper called Muhammad Speaks. Cassius was intrigued. After years of searching for spiritual answers, something inside him finally made sense. Cassius Clay is a slave name, he announced one day, and it was then that Muhammad Ali was born. He believed that it was a free name, one which was beloved of God, and he insisted that all people used it. That moment became the beginning of Ali's journey to Islam and set him on the path that helped him become the man the world admires today. Over the years, Ali became known for his cheeky attitude inside the ring and outside it. He won title after title until finally he strapped until he finally strapped the World Heavyweight Championship belt around his waist. He used his fame and fortune to become an activist for black people and to spread the message of his faith. In 1967, when the news of the Vietnam War spread, the US Army came knocking on Ali's door. It was then that the boxer made one of the boldest moves of his career. He stood firm in what he believed. The champion put his gloves down and refused to fight, a decision that led to an uproar, dividing his fans and ending his days in the ring for over 3 long years. It was Ali's actions and his determination to make change that set him apart from other boxers. Even now, years after his death, Ali is still remembered for his skill, for his commitment, and for his legacy as one of the greatest sporting icons. Now, the other person that I wanted to read about is a very different person. She was called Noor Inayat Khan, and she was a British spy. In 1914, in Moscow, Russia, a princess was born to an Indian noble, Inayat Rahmat Khan, and an American poet, Amina Begum. Their little girl Noor was the descendant of a warrior sultan, but her family was far removed from being fighters themselves. In fact, Noor's parents encouraged her to be a pacifist, someone who was against violence. They believed in the Sufi way of life, which was filled entirely with spirit and love. Noor's home was a place of peace, but when news spread that Russia was preparing for the First World War in 1914, they were forced to find a new one. Noor's life started afresh in Paris. She grew up a quiet and shy child who spent much of her time daydreaming. As she got older, she studied the workings of the human mind and even published her own collection of children's stories. In her tales, she promoted her pacifist views and ways to live a life without bloodshed. But everything changed when the world went to war again. It was May 1940 and the German army was ready to occupy Paris. Noor's hometown was no longer safe and danger lurked between the city walls. Once again, Noor and her family had to flee, but this time it was Britain that became their home. Once there, Noor wanted to help her country, but she still believed that violence was not the answer. After seeing so much destruction with her own eyes, she decided she could not simply look on any longer. Noor couldn't stand to watch her city being laid to waste and do absolutely nothing about it, so she volunteered for the Women's Auxiliary Air Force, one of Britain's female teams that was contributing towards the war effort. She trained as a radio operator, specializing in wireless operations and Morse code. But little did Noor know that her every move was being watched. Britain's Secret Service was on her case. They wanted to sabotage the Nazi occupation of Europe and work to decode encrypted messages, discover German strategies, and protect Allied forces already deployed there. And they wanted Noor's expertise. Her fluent French and her insider knowledge of Paris made her the perfect recruit to become a spy. But Noor was warned. Infiltrating enemy territory would be very dangerous. Nazis roamed the streets and they were ruthless. If she was detected and her identity was compromised, Britain couldn't protect her. Noor accepted the assignment without hesitation and immediately started her training in the art of espionage, learning how to contact intelligence networks, to resist interrogation, to pick locks, and to fire a pistol. In 1943, Noor was ready for a mission. With a fake passport under the codename Madeleine, a few French francs, and a gun, she parachuted into southern France. But within the first few weeks, her network was infiltrated by double agents, people who were secretly working for the Nazis, and her fellow spies were arrested. Noor was called to return home, but she refused. Convincing her supervisor to let her stay, Noor operated alone, taking on the responsibility of 6 agents' work on her own. In the months that followed, Noor sent intelligence reports of Nazi activity back to London, monitored and delivered supplies to the French resistance, and arranged the safe return of Allied soldiers back home. Being alone behind enemy lines was undeniably risky, but Noor's quick thinking and sharp wit protected her. Noor soon learned how to talk her way out of anything. Once she was caught trying to hang her Morse code aerial on a branch outside her flat by Nazi police. An officer confronted her, but she managed to charm him into thinking that she simply wanted to listen to music. He even unwittingly helped her to set up the transmitter. Thanks to his help, half an hour later, Noor was sending secret messages to London. But her charm worked a little too well, and Nora eventually drew the attention of a fellow agent, Franz Antelme, who was said to have fallen in love with her. But another woman who liked Antelme became jealous and sold Nora's address to the Gestapo, the secret German police. It was only then that she was caught. While imprisoned, Nora refused to leak any of the Allies' secrets and was severely tortured under interrogation. However, she remained loyal to her cause and made plans to escape. One evening, Nora loosened a skylight with a screwdriver she had stolen from the guards. She and other prisoners broke out on the roof and began to run for their lives, but an air raid siren screamed out and alerted the guards of their absence. The agents were captured once more, and this time their punishments were worse. From that moment on, Nora was classed as highly dangerous and spent her time shackled in chains. After weeks spent in solitary confinement, still refusing to give away any secrets, Nora was sent to a Nazi concentration camp in Dachau in Germany. At dawn on the 13th of September 1944, she was executed. She was just 30 years old. It was said that the last word to leave her lips was liberté, the French word for freedom, and Noor Inayat Khan remained forever loyal to both the Allies and her heart. She had waged her own war over the radio and helped dismantle Nazi-occupied Paris.